Henry Cavill, he is Superman. And there's this clip from the trailer for the upcoming Mission Impossible where he's about to fight somebody and he throws out his arms and then just punches somebody in the gut. And I'm like, wow, that's a badass scene. I really want to see Mission Impossible. I think Henry Cavill is a good actor. I think he does a good job as Superman. I think the DC movies are all right. I know a lot of people rag on him. But poor Henry Cavill had to apologize for what is called a controversial comment he made about flirting. I don't think what he said was controversial, but I am not the arbiter of what is or is not controversial. Simply because people disagree or simply because people think it was inappropriate makes it controversial, which is a bit unfortunate when you look at what he said. So let's look at what he said. Flirting. He seems like a nice guy. Look at, he's got a microphone and a blue jacket. The Superman actor made the remarks in a recent interview with GQ Australia after being asked about the Me Too movement. Henry Cavill has apologized after he was criticized for comments he made in a recent interview about flirting with women. The Superman actor made the comments during a recent interview. They said that already. We'll carry on. During the interview, Cavill voices his concern about flirting in a post-Me Too world. In case, quote, I'm not going to quote it because of my past story about getting taken out of context. But Henry Cavill said, as you can read, he is worried about being accused by women of being a rapist. He said that he is unfortunate enough to not be around the kind of people who behave that way. To his memory, there's been no moments where he looks back and thinks, okay, maybe someone shouldn't have gone through that. He said, I know there have been situations with people I've worked with being perhaps over-familiar with some of the actresses, but I've always walked up to them and said, hey, are you all right? That's creepy. Now he's apologized for the remarks and any confusion and misunderstanding they may have caused. Insensitivity was absolutely not my intention, he said in a statement. In light of this, I would like to clarify and confirm to all that I have always and will continue to hold women with the highest regard no matter the type of relationship. He also confirmed his support for the Me Too movement. In the original interview, Cavill was asked about whether Me Too had made him reconsider his own behavior towards women. He replied that he likes to think he's never been like that any human being alive today, if someone casts too harsh a light on anything, you could be like, well, okay, yeah, when you say it like that, maybe. But it's such a delicate and careful thing to say because there's flirting, which, for example, in a social environment is in context and acceptable, and that has been done to me as well in return. Stuff has to change, absolutely. It's important to also retain the good things, which were a quality of the past, and get rid of the bad things. There's something wonderful about a man chasing a woman, he continued. There's a traditional approach to that which is nice. I think a woman should be wooed and chased, but I may be old-fashioned for thinking that. He said, it's very difficult to do that with certain rules in place. Because then it's like, well, I don't want to go up to talk to her because I'm going to be called a rapist or something. So you're like, forget it. I'm going to call an ex-girlfriend instead, and then just go back to a relationship which never really worked. But it's way safer than casting myself into the fires of hell because I'm someone in the public eye, and if I go and flirt with someone, then who knows what's going to happen. Now, you really can't pursue someone further than, no. It's like, okay, cool. But then there's, oh, why'd you give up? And it's like, well, because I didn't want to go to jail. Let's break this down for a second. He's right. He's absolutely right. The fact that people are getting mad at this blows my mind. Actually, it doesn't. It worries me to a certain extent. On my main channel today, I talked about John Schnatter and the executive from Netflix getting fired over describing racism. And here we have an instance of someone actually trying to say there's, it's you got to be really careful this day and age to make sure you don't do something wrong. What he's saying in this quote is that he's concerned about flirting with women in a professional context because it might bother them and it's not okay. Isn't that the message you've been trying to convey? Seriously, the Me Too movement, feminism has been saying we need to have professional boundaries. And he said, yeah, man, wow, you got to consider those professional boundaries. He talked about how in a social environment, it's in context and acceptable. And then he talks about areas where it's not acceptable. Oh, good job, Henry Cavill, understanding the message that's been conveyed. No. Apparently, this is also offensive. This is what's really mind-blowing. Describing that the N-word is offensive is racist, and you'll get fired for it. Describing the current environment of trying to be careful to not, do something that could be considered wrong or unacceptable is also unacceptable. This is how I always talk about the more the left tries to create these rules to protect everybody, the more they're going to destroy themselves. I got a video from a couple days ago about how the lesbians at Pride in London are, being called anti-trans for asserting their rights. So let's look at some of the wonderful hot takes from the people criticizing Henry Cavill for accurately pointing out you shouldn't harass women, you shouldn't objectify women, and he's talking about professional settings, and that, yeah, if you don't want to do something that's considered unacceptable in society, you shouldn't do it. But what did they say? Helen Price, she's got a ton of response to this. I don't know who she is, but she said, "This is absurd. If Henry Cavill doesn't want to be called a rapist, then all he has to do is not rape anyone. The mental gymnastics some men are doing to position themselves as victims of Me Too is insane." But he's not. He was agreeing with it. He was actually abiding by all the rules they set forward, saying, "Hey man, you shouldn't, flirt in certain situations because, who knows what someone's going to think, and it can really put you in the hot seat." Yeah, that's true. They got mad at him for that. This is the world that you've created. I don't understand why this is wrong. Right? Isn't this the goal? To have people like Henry Cavill rethink the actions they will take in a professional context? Well, there's more. Donna Dickens, she said, "Good. Henry Cavill shouldn't date until he figures out how to do it without accidentally raping someone." Well, she's kind of making the same point as me, like, right, yeah, Henry Cavill, if you don't know the rules and you're worried about it, then you should back off in professional settings. She doesn't got to be a dick about it, but right, well, there you go. I think she's trying to do like a hot take and insult him for having this thought, but no, I think she's rudely on point, right? That's what their goal was. At least she's being consistent. Personally, I disagree with the severity, and I think I understand what Henry Cavill's trying to say. But yeah, in professional settings, we should maybe tone things down. Maybe flirting isn't acceptable in the workplace. There might be people who think it's fine to flirt, and there might be people who think it's not okay. And look, if you flirt with someone who's fine with it, you're all good. If you flirt with someone who's not okay with it, you're not good. So it's better just not to flirt at work, right? Don't mix business and pleasure. It's that simple. Let's see, what else we got here? Anna Tezier, wow, Henry Cavill, I am so utterly sorry that the Me Too movement has inconvenienced you. I am so sorry. But Henry Cavill was being a nice guy. He wasn't complaining he's inconvenienced. He was just saying, hey man, I gotta watch my back. This is really how people have responded to this. It's kind of crazy. Henry Cavill said in his GQ magazine interview that the Me Too movement has made him nervous to flirt because he doesn't want to be called a rapist. He is basically saying that women are so sensitive that they can't even handle someone flirting with them. Superman can suck it. Yes, he's not wrong though. What really blows my mind is how right Henry Cavill is. And don't worry, I have some citation to back up my opinion. And what is it? It's the Aziz Ansari story. If you're not familiar, this is a story about a bad date where someone actually consented to hooking up with Aziz Ansari and then basically regretted it and got mad at him about it, and he apologized for it, and they published it as a Me Too moment that people actually embraced and says, Aziz Ansari, that was wrong of you. So let's look at what Vox said. The controversy around Babe.net's Aziz Ansari story explained. The story deepened a crucial divide in Me Too reckoning. This is from January. So let's see if there's like a nice succinct. Out of all the stories of sexual harassment, abuse, misconduct, and violence that have been brought to light in the past few months, perhaps none has proved as controversial as the allegations brought against Aziz Ansari. Babe.net published a lengthy account of an anonymous 23-year-old woman about a date night with Ansari in September that she said went horribly wrong. She not only calls it by far the worst experience with a man I've ever had, but emphasizes that she has come to understand her experience with Ansari as sexual assault. This is mind-blowing, because in her story she acknowledges to consenting. The Babe.net report is markedly different from any others that have come out since the New York Times broke the story of Harvey Weinstein's decades alleged abuse. It's not about workplace harassment. It does not interview multiple victims or portray a pattern of abuse. It is about a single woman who was excited to go to dinner with a comedian she liked before quickly becoming uncomfortable with the tenor of his aggressive advances once they went back to his apartment. Grace told Babe that Ansari repeatedly ignored her growing discomfort and the concern she voiced and tried to pressure her into sex. At one point, Grace told Babe that she voiced that she didn't want to feel forced. Grace said that Ansari seemed to understand until he suggested they chill on the couch, where he sat back and pointed to his penis and motioned for me to go down on him. Grace says she felt pressured to go along with it, not knowing how to extricate herself from the situation, and eventually left his apartment in tears. Ansari released a statement in which he said they engaged in activity which by all indications was completely consensual. And by the woman's, it was as well. But that when he heard it was not the case for her, he was surprised and concerned. This piece got 2.5 million views. Divided reaction was almost immediate. It's been held up as painfully relatable and lambasted as unforgivably irresponsible. And then there are those, like the writer, who land somewhere in between, believing that there is value in telling Grace's story even as we question the way Babe decided to tell it. I agree with that. I agree with the middle ground. Was Aziz Ansari being very aggressive with the woman who was very uncomfortable and said she didn't want to feel forced? Yeah. Did she consent to hooking up with him? Yes. Was it a workplace environment? No. It was a regular date with someone who liked Aziz, went back to his apartment, hooked up a little bit. She said, hey, don't want to feel forced. He said, I understand. But then, not too long later was like, let's keep going. And she agreed to keep going and then later regretted it. This is just a bad hookup. It's a bad hookup. It's a guy who was a bit aggressive and a bit disrespectful, but that's really it. And it blows my mind. But listen, if you're someone like Aziz and you're going to go on a bad date and then it's going to become a piece that gets millions of views, is it so wrong then for Henry Cavill to say, hey, I got to be careful, I'm somebody in the public light, somebody can come out and smear me? Fact, it can. And the fact that we see this response from so many women kind of, I don't necessarily want to say attacking, but insulting and deriding Cavill for viewing the world this way because of what feminism has pushed forward, it's worrisome and ridiculous. Like the Papa John story, John Schnatter was trying to denounce racism, and because of that, he was called racist. And this is what's happening. It's always about being a victim, no matter what. Even when someone says, these people have power over me, so, I'm going to back off, you are still the oppressor. End of story. Stick around. I've got one more video today.